You keep running. Task after task, project after project, as if stopping would prove you were never enough to begin with. This compulsion to do more, to produce more, to justify your existence through endless output has become the shadow you refuse to face. And Jung understood something most will never grasp. The parts of yourself you deny only grow stronger in the dark. You were taught that value comes from visibility, from the tangible proof that you are useful, productive, worthy of the space you occupy. But somewhere beneath that belief lives a fear so primal you have spent years avoiding it. The fear that if you stop, if you simply exist without producing, you will be revealed as insufficient, empty, fraudulent. This is the wound that drives you, and it is not rational. It is unconscious, pulsing beneath every to-do list. Every late night, every moment you feel guilty for rest. The persona you present to the world is one of capability, efficiency, competence you have learned to wear. Productivity as armor, as proof that you belong. But Jung warned that the persona is only a mask. Behind it, the shadow accumulates everything you cannot admit. The exhaustion you ignore. The resentment toward those who rest. The quiet rage that no amount of achievement ever feels like enough. These are not flaws. They are signals from the unconscious telling you that the life you are living is at war with the life you need. The unconscious does not think in language. It thinks in symptoms, in moods, in the physical collapse that forces you to stop when you will not listen. Jung observed that when the conscious mind adopts a rigid, one-sided attitude, the unconscious compensates with equal force. If you insist on doing without being, the psyche will drag you into stillness through burnout, through illness, through the sudden inability to care about any of it. This is not punishment. It is correction. The unconscious is trying to restore balance, and it will use whatever means necessary. You believe that more action equals more value because you were conditioned to believe it. Society rewards output. It rewards visibility. It does not reward the invisible work of integration, of reflection, of sitting with what is unresolved. But Jung's process of individuation demands exactly that. It demands that you turn toward the parts of yourself you have been running from. The parts that are tired, the parts that feel inadequate no matter how much you achieve. The parts that wonder if you are only loved for what you produce. Active imagination, one of Jung's most profound practices, requires you to do nothing. To sit in silence and allow the unconscious to speak without interference. To observe the images, the feelings, the fantasies that arise when you are not controlling the narrative. This terrifies the ego. The ego wants to be in charge. It wants to plan, to fix, to produce a solution. But the unconscious does not operate on your timeline. It does not care about your deadlines. It speaks in dreams, in sudden emotions, in the exhaustion that arrives when you have ignored it for too long. Strategic non-action is not laziness. It is not avoidance. It is the deliberate choice to step back from the compulsion to do and to allow space for something deeper to emerge. Jung called this giving the unconscious a free hand. When you stop trying to control every outcome, when you stop filling every moment with tasks, the psyche begins to reveal what has been hidden. Creativity does not come from force. It comes from receptivity, from the willingness to not know, to not produce, to simply be present with what is. But the shadow resists this. The shadow contains all the voices that tell you rest is weakness, that stillness is failure, that if you are not producing, you are worthless. These are not your thoughts. They are the internalized expectations of a culture that equates human value with economic output. And until you confront this shadow, Until you see it clearly and consciously, it will continue to drive you. Unconscious material does not disappear because you ignore it. It only grows more powerful, shaping your behavior in ways you do not understand. The conscious attitude you have adopted is one-sided. Jung understood that this imbalance creates neurosis. The psyche splits. The conscious mind insists on one path while the unconscious demands another. The result is exhaustion, resentment, a life that feels increasingly hollow despite all you have accomplished. You are working harder, but nothing feels meaningful. You are producing more, but it never feels like enough. This is not a failure of effort. It is a failure of integration. The projection you place onto others reveals the shadow. You resent people who rest. You judge those who move slowly, who refuse to hustle, who seem unbothered by the pressure that consumes you. This judgment is a mirror. What you criticize in them is what you have denied in yourself. The need to slow down. The need to stop proving. The need to exist without justification. Until you reclaim this projection, until you admit that the part of you that longs for rest is not weak, but wise, you will continue to exhaust yourself in service of an unconscious fear. Discipline, in the Jungian sense, is not about forcing yourself to do more. It is about the courage to face what you have been avoiding, to sit with the discomfort of not doing, to tolerate the anxiety that arises when you are not producing. This is the real work. Not the tasks, not the projects, but the willingness to turn inward and ask why you cannot stop. What are you afraid will happen if you do? The unconscious compensates for the imbalance of the conscious mind. If you are rigidly focused on action, the unconscious will pull you toward stillness, often through collapse. If you are inflated with the belief that your worth comes from what you do, the unconscious will deflate you, reminding you that you are human, finite, and in need of rest. This is not cruelty. It is wisdom. The psyche knows what you need even when the ego refuses to admit it. Conscious intention is different from compulsion. It is driven by fear, by the unconscious belief that you are not enough unless you are producing. Conscious intention operates from integration. It is grounded in the awareness that you are whole, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. When you act from conscious intention, you choose tasks that align with your deeper purpose. You are not chasing validation. You are not running from inadequacy. You are responding to what is genuinely yours to do, and you are willing to let go of the rest. This shift requires silence. Not the silence of passivity, but the silence of listening. The silence that creates space for the unconscious to speak. It will find a way to express itself either through conscious engagement or through unconscious symptoms. If you refuse to listen, if you refuse to stop, the psyche will stop you. The body will break down. The mind will shut off. The motivation will disappear. This is not failure. It is the psyche's last resort. Inner authority is not given to you by external validation. It is not earned through productivity. It is claimed through the process of individuation, through the willingness to integrate the shadow and to live from a place of wholeness rather than performance. When you develop inner authority, you no longer need the world to tell you that you are enough. You no longer need endless tasks to prove your worth. You know, deeply and quietly, that your value is inherent. Others will feel this shift before you articulate it. When you stop performing, when you stop chasing approval, something in you becomes still. And that stillness is unsettling to those who are still running. They will try to pull you back into the compulsion. They will question your choices. They will project their own fears onto you. But if you have done the work, if you have integrated the shadow, their projections will not land. You will see them for what they are, reflections of the unconscious material they have not yet faced. Creativity, genuine creativity, does not emerge from relentless doing. It emerges from the tension between opposites, between action and stillness, between effort and surrender, between the conscious mind that plans and the unconscious mind that imagines. Jung understood that the psyche seeks synthesis, not domination. When you honor both sides, when you allow space for non-action alongside intention, something new becomes possible. Not because you forced it, but because you made room for it. It comes from alignment, from acting in service of what is deeply true, not what is externally rewarded. This requires discernment. It requires the ability to say no, not out of laziness, but out of clarity. To recognize that not every opportunity is yours. Not every task is necessary. Not every demand deserves your energy. This is not selfishness. It is psychological maturity. The shadow contains not only what you fear, but also what you have repressed. The creativity you have not allowed because it is not productive. The rest you have denied because it feels indulgent. The dreams you have abandoned because they do not fit the persona you have built. Jung believed that integrating the shadow unlocks tremendous energy. The energy you have spent suppressing these parts of yourself becomes available for something real, something whole, something that does not require you to prove anything. You will know you have begun this integration when the compulsion to do begins to quiet. When you can sit in stillness without panic, when rest no longer feels like failure, when the need for external validation loosens its grip. This is not the end of action. It is the beginning of intentional action. Action that comes from wholeness rather than fear, from presence rather than performance, from a place that knows without question that you are enough. The unconscious will meet you where you are. If you approach it with curiosity, it will offer insight. If you approach it with fear, it will mirror that fear back to you. Jung was explicit. The unconscious will take to you the attitude you take to it. If you continue to repress the need for stillness, the psyche will continue to compensate through collapse. But if you turn toward it, if you listen, if you create space for what has been denied, the unconscious becomes an ally. A source of creativity, of clarity, of deep knowing that no amount of external achievement can provide. This is not a rejection of action. It is a reframing of it. You do not stop doing. You stop doing to prove worth. You stop doing because you are afraid of what will happen if you do not. Instead, you act from a place of integration, from conscious intention, from the understanding that your value is not conditional on your output. And that, more than any achievement, is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. Not endlessly productive, but whole,